Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. It's good that a few people have joined us for this webinar. So it's great to be able to do this with you this morning. So I welcome all of you. Good morning, everybody. So we still got a few minutes before 11. I just wanted to recognize those who are already there. Vicky and Cheryl, I can see your names on the thing. I don't know who the others are, but you're very, very welcome. And I hope you had a good sleep and that you're well and in good spirits during this time of a global pandemic. Really strange times. You can see me and see the slides I will share. When it comes to questions and answers, if you could just type in on your Facebook page, just type in your questions and I'll be able to see it here and then be able to answer the questions, okay? So I hope that's clear. We just have to wait for a few more minutes before the others join us. I'm very, very delighted that you can join us and I'm happy that you all are here this morning. I guess I'll say a bit more during the workshop. It's really important during this testing time that we have time to care for ourselves, and that is why really I wanted to do this, just to give us some tools, some tips. I'm sure you're already doing that. You probably do that better than I do, but I just wanted us to come together and encourage one another, support one another, and learn how this time of crisis can also be a time of opportunity for us as well. So thank you. I think it's important that we do this together. So I really thank you for joining. So here we are. A minute to go. I hope you can all hear me okay. If you can, just let me know and I'll speak up a little bit. And I'm very grateful for Jono for helping me put this together and be able to share this with you. So let's begin. It's 11 o'clock and I also can see Sarah Matthews from Colac. Sarah, thank you for joining us as well. And the others that I haven't seen their names, I welcome you all in the name of Christ. And let's begin. We begin by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, where I am sitting here at the Diocesan Center, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. When COVID-19 struck in March and we were asked to have an imposed isolation and eventually a lockdown, a lot of people, psychologists and counselors and general practitioners and medical experts said to people that it's important, if we're going to be able to cope with this isolation, that we maintain a daily routine, physical exercise, eating and sleeping well. They encouraged us as well to look after our mental well-being through social connections, ringing our people, writing letters, all those things, emails, even as we remain physically apart. But not many, it seems to me, spoke or speak about what I call spiritual care, which to me completes the triangle. So we need the physical exercise, we need the mental care, well-being. But I think sometimes we don't often talk about our spiritual well-being, spiritual care, as I call it. So my invitation this morning is really to say that we are, as human beings, a unity of body. And as I said, we need to care for ourselves, physical exercise. The doctors will tell you this is not rocket science. Balanced and nutritious diet, and good sleep. This is very self-evident. If you don't exercise, if you eat too much and drink too much and smoke, eventually you're going to die probably before your time. But more and more these days, we are concentrating on caring for our mind and mental well-being. We know that study and intellectual pursuits enable us to care for our minds, healthy relationships and connections are important for good mental well-being, as well as what we read and what we watch. If you watch too much television or watch too much bad news, it does affect you mentally. And we all know this. I'm not saying anything that is not self-evident, and we all are adult enough to understand these things. But we are also people who have spirits and souls. We are spiritual beings, and we need silence and solitude and prayer in order to nurture ourselves spiritually. And I think sometimes in our society that is so one-dimensional sometimes. The emphasis is too much on the material side of things that often we neglect our spiritual well-being. I want to encourage you this morning, my friends, to really think about what I call holistic health. If we really yearn for holistic health, if we want to be whole in a proper sense of the word and healthy in a holistic sense, then we must care for our bodies, our minds, and our souls. About 8 years ago, I came across a young Dutch woman called HILLESUM. A lot of you probably heard me speak about her many, many times. I came across her when I just left the Roman Catholic Church and became an Anglican. It was a very, very, very difficult time for me, a lot going on, a lot of transition and the dislocation and the pain of having to change denominations. But in Norwich, at Julian of Norwich's Center, I found a book called An Interrupted Life, Letters and Diaries of HILLESUM. And I came to know about Etty through the writings of Robin Williams. And Etty, in her book, the letters and diaries that she wrote during the Holocaust, she found God, or rather she said God found her during the Holocaust when so many people were losing faith in God. She found God not in the buildings of a synagogue or a church or a mosque, because I don't think that she actually went to a church or a mosque or a temple for one day of her life, but actually through solitude and prayer and silence. They actually call her the adult Anne Frank, and I'm sure maybe in the future a movie will be made about her life. But she was a wonderful young woman, only 29 when she died, but she wrote so much beautiful stuff about the spiritual life and her relationship with God, which really came because she found time for silence, for solitude, and for prayer. And this is her photo, the young Etty HILLESUM. And I would really encourage you, if you can lay your hands on this book, Letters and Diaries of Etty HILLESUM. There's so much relevance and resonance of what she wrote, even for us during this time of a global pandemic. And I encourage you to learn a bit more about Etty and her writings, which I'm sure you will find very, very spiritually enriching. In this book, An Interrupted Life, Letters and Diaries about Etty HILLESUM, Etty described her journey to finding God, how that was through finding her true and deepest self. She wrote in that book that the body and soul are one, and that the inner world is as real as the outer one, and both need care. I really think that's the heart, the crux of what I want to say this morning, that our inner world is as real as the outer world, and both need care. I think often in our society, our emphasis is too much on the outer world that we so much sometimes forget our inner world, which also needs care. In her book, Silence, Solitude, and Simplicity by Sister Jeremy Hall, a Benedictine nun in America, she said, and this is a question that she posed, in that book. She asked, are we sufficiently present to God, at home for God within ourselves, to recognize God's presence there, to welcome the Lord? Are we sufficiently present to God, at home for God within ourselves, to recognize God's presence there, to welcome the Lord? I really think it's a question that I would like you to ask yourself today and in the coming days and weeks. Am I sufficiently present to God, the God who is present at every moment to us? Are we at home for God within ourselves, to recognize his presence and to welcome him? St. Augustine, in his Confessions, I'm sure you would have known about St. Augustine's Confessions, he wrote, talking about God, you were more inward than my most inward part. and higher than the highest element within me. And this was a man who spent a lot of time on outward pursuits. And when he finally found God, he recognized God was more inward than his most inward self and higher than the highest elements within him. And I think that's for us, the journey that we also have to make in our spiritual life, to be able to come to that point when we recognize the God who dwells within us and be able to speak to him heart to heart. I want to offer 3 ways that we can be present to God and care for our spiritual well-being. And I mentioned them already. It's through silence, solitude, and prayer. Let's take them one after the other. It seems to me that in our society, we are afraid of silence. We are threatened by silence. And that is why we live under the dictatorship of noise. There's so much noise everywhere. You watch people these days, even when they're out exercising, they have earplugs. Sometimes you wave or say hello, they don't even hear you. We'll be in a beautiful natural environment with birds singing and people miss all that. I think also we are so distracted. There's so much distractions. Don't get me wrong, technology is great. I mean, I love Netflix and I enjoy those things. I love watching soccer and all of that. But I think sometimes there's so much television 24/7 going, radio going 24/7, and all the distractions that we really do not hear the God who speaks to us. Remember Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Simone Weil was a friend of silence, and she once said, "Our soul makes constant noise, but it has a silent place that we never hear." Our soul makes constant noise, but it has a silent place that we never hear. And that silent place, I reckon, is the space in us where we are loved, valued, innocent, at home, true, free, and grounded. It's that place where nothing whatsoever can touch, the place where we are with our loving God, heart to heart, in union, in intimacy. We can only get to that place through silence. Let not the noise of our society, the noise of the materialistic and consumerist culture, deprive you of that opportunity to connect and commune with God, heart to heart, in the silence of your heart. The second way we can care for ourselves spiritually is through solitude. I find it quite amusing sometimes in church, in the intercessions we pray. Let us pray for those who are lonely. And I wonder, who are those people who are lonely? Are they really out there? I think in many ways we are all lonely. You know, who can say to me that they've never felt loneliness in their lives? We are all in that category. We are all lonely, but we are never alone. And there's a difference between being lonely and being alone. So solitude really is a way that we come to terms with actually our loneliness. Even if you're married and have family, in a significant relationship, you're in some sense actually still lonely. And this is what really solitude is. And we learned that from Jesus. And I'll speak a little bit more about that. He used to go off by himself. He was the most active person, but he had those times in prayer where he connected with his Father, where he lived the solitude of his relationship with his Father. That sometimes he would spend the whole night in solitary prayer, and the apostles will see him in the morning and they'll be amazed at his experience and his encounter with his Father. So solitude, according to Thomas Merton, said that we are in solitude when we fully taste the water we are drinking, feel the warmth of our blankets, and are restful enough to be content inside our own skin. When was the last time that you felt like that? That you fully taste the water you're drinking, you feel the warmth in this cold weather, you feel the warmth of your blanket and are restful enough to be content inside your own skin. That's really what solitude is. That awareness of your uniqueness, awareness that you are a child of God, a son and a daughter, that you are unique, you are enough, you are loved. And the third way we can spiritually care for ourselves is through prayer. And we know this, and as Anglicans, we cherish public prayer, and that's so important. But I want to share with you something that ETTY wrote about prayer that I think, to me, is the best definition of prayer that I've ever come across. And this is what she said. She said, "There's a well deep inside me, and in that well, God dwells. Sometimes I'm there, but most often the well is covered by sand, dirt, and stones, and God is hidden. Then God must be dug out again. That's so beautiful. This is the work of prayer, digging God out again. God that dwells in us, but often life's problems and hurts and challenges as we get older, and the noise, and there's so many distractions of our society hide God. God is hidden. He's covered by sand, dirt, and stones. Now we must dig out God again. This is really beautiful, the beautiful definition of prayer. And look at Jesus' examples in Mark 1:35, Matthew 14:23, Luke 5:16, Luke 21:37 to 38. These passages from the Bible talk about Jesus going off all by himself, sometimes all through the night to be in prayer. So we have the example of Jesus. He did things. He also participated in public prayer. Sometimes he was in the synagogue and he prayed, like a Jewish person, and observed all the wonderful Jewish feasts as we do now as Christian Anglicans. But we also need moments of personal prayer and solitary prayer. And I don't think sometimes in the church we take that as seriously as our public prayer. Yes, it's important for us to come to church, so much during COVID, because of the restrictions. But public prayer is important, absolutely. But equally as important is those times of private and solitary prayer, as Jesus has taught us in those passages. And in Luke chapter 18, verse 1, he said to us, pray always and never lose heart. Pray always and never lose heart. So we have the example of Jesus, and we have those three ways: silence, solitude, and prayer. They are the three ways that I want to encourage you. I'm sure you're doing that already, but I want to encourage you to persevere in the discipline of every single day, making time for silence, for solitude, and for prayer. And that's how you care for yourself spiritually. And spiritual care is not an exclusive reserve of religious people. As I said before, it used to be in the past, we emphasize a lot of physical well-being, gyms, Pilates, all of those things, yoga now, and all of those massage places. People not taking seriously exercises, physical well-being. And we all know that the doctors will tell you how important it is. And gradually now, as a society, we are becoming more aware of the importance of our mental well-being. And a lot of money has been invested in a lot of programs to encourage people to speak up about their mental struggles. And I think that's wonderful. The taboos are gradually, clearing, and people are becoming more comfortable, even high-profile people, to talk about their mental health problems. So you can go on the website and look up You Can Talk, about the program that the government and Lifeline are putting together to help people come to terms with their mental health challenges. And I think as a society, it is a fantastic thing. But I really believe that after the mental well-being, when we've done with making sure that we're all doing the right thing by mental health, the next emphasis in our society, I think, will be the importance of spiritual well-being, spiritual care. And I really think that's when we then get a holistic health. And I like to think that holistic health is a state of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, that you can only be healthy when those three are working together, and when you are looking after and caring for yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. So what are the benefits of spiritual care? I'd like to propose, and these are mine examples, and I found this in my own life, and I'm sure you have yours, and you can share them when we come to the time for questions and answers. I think firstly, holistic health and well-being are not just concentrating on 2/3 of our existence, like our physical well-being and our mental well-being. It's important to have the whole together, not just only 50% or 70%, but the whole 100% of the makeup of the human person. And when I do counseling, I'm a trained counselor. I give my clients, I don't call them clients, guests, I give them what I call 30 minute script, which is really, I encourage them to have 30 minutes of physical exercise every day and 30 minutes of meditation and prayer every day. And it's something that people think, oh, that's probably too hard or too simple. But if you really persevere in doing this every day for 30 days, I'll encourage you to do that. You'll find an amazing transformation. If you spend 30 minutes of physical exercise, preferably in a natural environment, and also maybe 30 minutes of meditation. You can divide it up into 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, and the discipline of doing that. But also the need to know that I really need this to care for myself, not just physically, but also spiritually. That's when the transformation begins to happen. And I reckon too, we have a heightened awareness of our interconnectedness when we care for ourselves spiritually. You realize that you are connected, our souls connects us intimately with not only the human components of creation, but the other than human components. Sometimes when I go for a walk, I'll stop by a lovely tree and put my face on the tree and experience that connection. Sometimes I stop and talk to birds and listen to them and acknowledge them as St. Francis would say, as our brothers and sisters. And I acknowledge the sun, our brother's sun, and our sister moon and the stars. I mean, these are ways that we remind ourselves that we are intimately connected with everything that exists and that we are not alone, even though we may be lonely. But I also think that spiritual care enables us to accept our vulnerability. And that's what we all have in common. We have this illusion of strength in our society that's really not good for us. I think we all need help because we are all vulnerable. Is really important. You know, when we accept our vulnerability, then we become more compassionate in what we say to people and how we talk to them. And I think spiritual care contributes, enables us to become more accepting of our vulnerability. I think it also enables us to sing our own song, self-acceptance. And I don't mean self-satisfaction or self-aggrandizement or narcissism. This is different from that. I mean, proper self-love, because I really know, and I've seen this so many times, most of us carry a sense of self-disgust and self-shame. We really deep down don't love ourselves. When we spend time in silence and solitude and in prayer, one of the benefits I've found is really you come to a point where you actually accept yourself with all your warts and all. You accept the person that you are, despite your flaws, your foibles, that you are still a child of God and He loves you. What could be more beautiful? You save yourself $10,000 of therapy when you have a proper self-love. I don't mean narcissism, but self-acceptance. And there is a beautiful quotation. It says, deep within you is written your own song and sing it with all your heart. And that's really what proper self-love is. And I think spiritual care also reduces that tendency we all have to always compare ourselves with others or to want to be other people. And I think that's really the killer of joy. It destroys our own self-joy when we always compare ourselves or when we always want to have what others have. Finally, our spiritual care brings about a more peaceful, humane, kind, ecologically aware, and a more compassionate world. So I want to conclude with this beautiful poem by Melissa Shaw Smith. She said, this year, the year has rocked this world to its roots. What if for one day each being put down their burdens, their words of hate, their inhumanity, and breathe in their presence? Stopped fighting for history, for fears, hopes, dreams, and stood facing the sun, the morning sun, letting the warmth of the moment and the next accumulate like dust at their feet, listened instead of spoke, acknowledged truth, embraced silence. What if for one day each being acknowledged the fear and let it go, suspended beliefs, opened their arms, drew strength through earth, grass, rock, sand, found the sparrow singing from a lone bush, the small heart-shaped cloud, felt the currents of air wash over them, mingle with the breath, and let the seams unravel, borders blend, walls dissolve, and be one. And that's a beautiful poem. So beautiful. What if we let walls dissolve, borders blend, and be one with nature, with God, with ourselves, and with others. I saw this quotation yesterday. A friend sent it to me from Arundhati Roy, a wonderful Indian writer and a beautiful woman. She said, whatever it is, coronavirus has made the mighty kneel, and has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth longing for a return to normality, trying to stitch our future to our past, and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. And in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Historically, she said, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks, and our dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. I really think that's so profound, that this time of a pandemic is a portal, is a gateway to something new, something beautiful. And I think those who have access to their interior life will be amongst those who will help to bring about this new world. And that's why I think spiritual care is so vital to helping to remake our world so that something new comes out as a result of this terrible crisis of a global pandemic. So thank you, my friends, for listening. We're going to have a question and answer now. And then after that, we will have some mindfulness exercises if you so desire. So I've come to the end of what I wanted to say, and I hope it was helpful. I would like you to then type in your questions. If you have any questions, you can type it in on Facebook page, and I'll like to answer them as much as I can. Okay, so over to you. Thank you very much, one and all. Thank you, Bill. I received a question from Bill, and the question is, when meditating, how do you stop the inner voice trying to deal with today's issues? That's a very good question, Bill. I think sometimes you really, what I've learned over the years is we don't wrestle with the ideas. What we try to do is we make them part of our prayer. When when the voice comes, for example, you go to meditation or to prayer, and the voice comes, "Oh, Constantine, you haven't done this," and then I can bring that into my prayer as well. I can make it part of my prayer. Or the voice reminds me, "Oh, look, you haven't rung this person." I said, "Oh, look, yeah, yes, as soon as I finish this, I will ring the person." So try not to resist the voice, rather make the voice part of your prayer and part of your meditation. That's one of the simplest ways I've learned to deal with distractions in prayer. Rather than trying to fight them, but actually you make them part of your prayer. And that's what I find that is helpful. So I hope that helps you, Bill. There's also what the Christian meditation by John Main. They use a mantra, and by repetition of that mantra, then that helps you not to dwell so much on those voices, because the mantra helps you to drown them out during the time of meditation. So again, there are different techniques that we can use. The one I find most helpful for me is when I make the distraction or the voice part of my prayer or meditation, and that reduces the power it has, during my time of prayer. So I don't know. I hope that helps you. Or the use of mantra. Maranatha is a mantra that Christian meditation group use, and through the repetition of that mantra, and then those voices are drawn out during your time of prayer. Okay, so that's a little tip that might be able to help you or might not, but I'm sure you can figure it out. But I think the key thing is the persistence, the discipline of staying with that time of prayer, just making sure you turn up and you turn up regularly. And over time, you'll come to learn how to deal with the distractions. Somebody's saying that they agree with the comments regarding noise and auditory overstimulation. We need the quiet in order to best listen to God. Yeah, thank you. And I think that's so important, Vicky. I agree. I think there's too much distraction and too much noise in our society. So we need to find ways to make time for silence and for prayer. Somebody also is saying, on Wednesday, I walked the Birregura labyrinth. The combination of movement and silence and solitude was deeply fulfilling, especially a gift for those who need to move to be comfortable. And I think, yes, labyrinth is also one of the ways that we can learn to center ourselves by walking a labyrinth. And I agree with you, Sarah, a wonderful idea. And also somebody said, Edith Gibbs, concentrate on my breathing. Yes, that's a good point too. Through our breathing, we can actually learn to deal with distractions and the voices that try to distract us in prayer. So I agree. Thank you, Edith. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I would like to then go to a meditation exercise, a simple meditation exercise, actually 2 simple meditation exercises that might help you. These are the ones I learned recently, and one of them, the second one, is my own. I developed that for myself, so I hope that's helpful. I would recommend 2 books about meditation that you might find helpful. The first one is The Art of Meditation by Matthew Ricard. He's a Buddhist monk. And the other book is The Little Book of Mindfulness, 10 Minutes a Day to Less Stress and More Peace by Dr. Patricia Koller. There's so many offerings of fantastic mindfulness books that one can use. So please take that on board and use when you can. But these 2 I find helpful. This is the one that I find. It's only a little book, and you can actually easily get it. I think it's about $15 online. The Little Book of Mindfulness, I find that very helpful for people who are busy, who have less time. You can only make 10 minutes a day, and that's really very, very great, helpful, I find. So the first one that I want to share with you is what Patricia called Look Around You and Live Longer. In this exercise, I want to invite you, wherever you are, if you're in a room, your lounge room, your study, wherever you are, I just want you to just sit with your back straight and pick as a focus of awareness a new aspect of your life. I want you to try and really look at a particular leaf. If you can look out through a window, you can look out through a window on a particular leaf on a tree, and then a stone, a flower or plant that you can find, maybe a pot plant inside where you are. Just look at it. Focus your awareness on this new aspect of your life. You may have been in this room for many, many months and years, you haven't even noticed something. Can you find something you can focus your awareness on? And I want you to think about a piece of furniture as well, a decoration, a painting that you like in your house, in your study, in your living room, somewhere. I want you to just wonder, how did that come into being, this particular piece of furniture? You know, think about people who made the furniture, how many people were involved in creating it, who did the painting that you're looking at, how many people involved in the painting, but also the framing and the different aspects of that painting getting to where it is in your room or in your house at the moment. So just spend some time looking at a different aspect of your life, maybe a piece of furniture, a painting, or maybe a tree outside, a leaf on that tree, or maybe a stone or an artwork, a flower or a plant. Just concentrate your time, acknowledge the presence of something new where you are at the moment, in your house, in your room. Dr. Patricia said that in doing so, we may also want to think about the people that we meet today, people in our lives, your spouse, your children, people you meet, your neighbors, people you meet in the supermarkets, on the streets, walking their dogs. How many people who were responsible for them being here? Often we take people for granted. When you see people today, think about their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents. There's so many people who have existed before they were able to be here, and acknowledge them for who they are, for the mystery and the wonderful beings that they are. Patricia Collard said, with a sense of adventure and curiosity, we can actually learn and experience more moment by moment. You know how when we were little children, I have 2 little children, they're so curious. As we get older, we forget what curiosity is because our minds are so full of so many things. This is really encouraging us to rediscover that childlike curiosity, you know, to see things afresh, see life every day as new, and people every day as mysteries and beautiful and new and different encounters. Collard said, a recent study shows that mindfulness practices such as these may not only be responsible for structural changes in the brain, but also extend our life. Our research has shown also psychological and cognitive changes, improvements in perception and well-being, for example. However, it also appears that meditation might actually help to delay the process of aging by protecting the caps, the telomeres located at the end of our chromosomes. This is really good science, and we all know that, the importance of mindfulness and meditation, and I really encourage you maybe to take this on board. This is a second exercise, and this is mine, the one that I developed for myself, and I hope you find it helpful. I begin by reading, when I want to meditate, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man, and read man as woman, man and woman, human beings, became a living soul. So I want us to observe our breathing for 10 seconds, okay? Have a deep breath, you know, breathe from your diaphragm, not from up here, from your diaphragm. That's really good. You know, breathing is one of our most natural things that we do, but there's also a good way of breathing and a bad way of breathing. So even though it's natural and common, but sometimes we don't breathe properly. I want you to breathe now from your diaphragm, okay? So observe your breathing for about 10 seconds. You breathe in and out for 10 seconds, okay? Breathe in, out. Breathe in, out. Breathe in, out. So as we breathe in, I want you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, okay? Deep breath through our noses and out through our mouth. Breathe in through our noses and out through our mouth. And as you breathe in, remember Genesis 2:7 says, God formed us of the dust of the ground and breathe into our nostrils the breath of life. Our breath is God's nephesh, his wind, his spirit, his life in us. That's amazing. Now you and I are alive because of God's life. In Genesis 1:26, the Bible says, let us make man in our own image and likeness. That you and I are made in God's image and likeness. You don't need any 20 seconds of fame. You're already famous. Because you're a child of God, you're made in his image and likeness. So as you breathe in, you think about God's breath in you, that this breath you are breathing now is God's, his life, his spirit, his wind, his nephesh in you and in me. So breathe in, out, breathe in, out, breathe in, out. Breathe in, out. Breathe in, out. As we breathe in, you say, I am home. As you breathe out, you say, I give love to the world. Okay, you breathe in, you say, I am home. And you breathe out, you say, I give love to the world. And second time you breathe in, you say, I am connected. And you breathe out, you say, I share God's love with everyone. Okay? Breathe in, I am connected. And as you breathe out, I share God's love with everyone. And the next time when you breathe in, you can say, I am alive. And I share God's love with everything as you breathe out. Okay? I am alive. And I share God's love with everything. And lastly, you can remind yourself, I am loved by God. And you breathe out all the fear and hatred and hurt you've carried, some of them years old, decades old. You breathe them out. You take them out of your system. You breathe in, I am loved by God. Okay? We are loved by God. Okay? So that's some little exercises, and I hope you found them helpful. As I said, I use them all the time, and I find that in reminding myself of God's nephesh, that this breath I have is his. One day this breath will stop, but the last breath of my earthly life will usher in, hopefully by God's grace, and I'm sure and I hope and I pray and I trust, I will usher in the first breath of my eternal life with God. And that's really God's life in me, and it's the same life that I'll hope to share too when I see God face to face. So because this world and the world to come are one. So thank you, my friends, and I hope this has been helpful for you. And I'm happy to take any questions post this webinar. You can contact me through St. Matthew's in Wendouree. I'm sure our numbers are online through the diocesan office. Thank you so much for your time. And please continue to care for yourself, continue to look after yourself during this testing time of a global pandemic. May you see yourself with the same joy, delight, and expectation with which God sees you at every moment of your life. So please watch over yourself, look after yourself, and do all the right things. Those rules we've been asked, washing our hands, keeping our distance, and let's continue to do that. And God bless you all, and keep you as you bless and keep others. Thank you, and have a great afternoon. God bless you. Bye-bye.